One of the best quotes that a certain doctor told me, I'm treating your pain. If you're still hurting, that's your fault.
That's what the doctor actually said. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, Keith, good to see you again.
Good to see you again, sir.
Yes, sir. And those of you joining us, thank you for coming in for another episode of Eclipse Unscripted. I am Dr. Leek, a double board certified pain management specialist. And today we have one of our favorite guests, Keith, who is a leader and representative of a group called Invisible No More. So Keith, why don't you tell everyone sort of who you are and the group you represent?
Invisible No More is a collection of people that deal with either chronic illness, chronic pain, or mental health struggles. Mm-hmm. Typically a group that's been invisible for decades, not only to the medical community, but to family, friends, society. They don't get that we have something wrong with this because when they look at us, we look fine, right? We're inside, we're dealing with incredible pain, or we're dealing with incredible depression, or we're dealing with POTS, or we're dealing with EDS, and nobody can see that by looking at us. So our goal is to let invisibles know they're seen, they're heard, they're loved, and they're not alone. And Absolutely. It just is an organic thing that grew, and it's gotten big, and it's crazy.
Well, that's awesome. And yeah, we definitely appreciate you having you here today. One of the things I really wanted to do when I first started into my journey of pain management was start a podcast like this as well, because many people don't know, but there's only 2,400 or so board certified pain specialists in the United States. And there's anywhere between 50 and 100 million people with pain. Nobody can see all the patients, right? So I think it's so important that we have opportunities like this where we can open Pandora's box, so to speak, talk about the experiences in pain management, not only from a patient side, but from a physician side. I don't know everything. You don't know everything, but we have experiences, and I think that we can bring that to the table and maybe help somebody else who's going through a challenging time.
Yeah, and I think what's great is we may not agree, we may disagree.
Sure.
But at least we know what the other side's thinking.
Absolutely.
And I think that's been kind of hidden for a really long time. And that's why I'm excited is we may have different approaches or different thoughts on the subject, but at least you understand we're part of us in the community you're coming from. And the community gets to see part of what the medical side is, why things happen that way.
Yeah. So this podcast actually has been, it's been coming for a little while now. We've been talking about, some topics, figuring out what are the big things that we need to be hitting first. So this episode is actually the first of several where we're going to hit some topics. And we actually have some real life patients who've sent in some questions, and we can address those as well.
I'd love to.
So the topic of this first episode here is adverse childhood events.
Yeah.
So, we understand that as basically being, I think it's important to, start off with some definitions so we're all on the same page. So an adverse childhood event may fall into three categories. It's either abuse of any kind and that occurs during your childhood. So 0 to 18 years old is how we define it. As you grow up in your childhood, you either have experienced potentially abuse, neglect, or some dysfunction within the household, whether that's parents divorcing or fighting, an incarcerated family member, something along those lines. So, and as a developing child, obviously that can be maybe more traumatic to witness than if you were already an adult. So there's been a lot of studies that have looked into how those events affect your health, your mental health, your physical health later on in life. And pain management just happens to be a part of that. Right. So what is the experience from a pain management patient, a chronic pain patient, as it relates to adverse childhood events?
Not positive. It's definitely not positive. It's a lot of times, whether it's chronic pain, chronic illness, or mental health, when somebody goes to see a new provider, they have all this paperwork to fill out, and they'll fill out an ACE questionnaire. Right. And as they see the doctor over time, it's like chronic pain, if it's like fibromyalgia, something that you can't see on an X-ray or a CT scan or MRI. And a lot of doctors will try a lot of things and nothing seems to be helping. then they'll go through their files again and say, oh, something happened to her when she was 5. And then they'll bring up to the patient, well, we've tried everything. So what's going on is your body's responding to this traumatic event that happened to you when you were 5. You need to go see a therapist or a psychiatrist. There's nothing that we can do. And I'm not here to argue whether ACE is real or if it happens. What I'm here to bring up is the fact that some doctors, I'm not saying all, but some doctors will take that as a route out of treating a patient. And they'll say, this traumatic experience that happened to you, it was terrible. You need to deal with it. Not even knowing perhaps that the lady has gone through 10 years of treatment with the therapist and they've dealt with it, right? And so what happens in those cases is, number one, the patient isn't being treated, but then the doctor inadvertently, being nice, inadvertently gives all that power back to the abuser that happened when they were 5 years old.
Wow.
Because now the patient leaves and says, so my pain is because of what this person did to me when I was 5.
Right.
And so now that abuser that's possibly even dead, right?
Guess what? They're back.
They're back. They're back in their lives. And so that not only leaves the patient trying to deal with that trauma again, but now they don't have any answers towards their fibro or EDS or anything else going on with them. And they're lost. So
I think we have a clip, Mr. Producer. And for those of you who don't know, we have Kevin backstage here, making sure all the lights stay on and our microphones are working. So thank you, Kevin, for being here today. But yeah, let's see. I think we have a clip from Karen. She sent in something about her experience with living with chronic pain and adverse childhood events. So let's see what she has to say.
Hey, Doc. Thanks for listening to us. I'm Karen. Keith calls me Advil. I'm one of his moderators. I'm 36, and before I got super sick to where I couldn't go on anymore, I was a university instructor. I taught American government and public personnel management. While I was trying to complete my PhD, finishing at the top of my class each year and finishing with a perfect GPA with my master's. And I'm going to start with adverse childhood events questions. And when I said yes at my previous pain management clinic, I was immediately put into this category of subhuman individuals that can only get up to 20 MME less than everybody else. Just because we said yes, we had an adverse childhood event. The clinic literally put everyone who said yes into this category of subhuman.
So I just wanted to point that out there. She said she got put into a category that was different than everybody else. And for some reason, that clinic defined that category as her needing 20 oral morphine equivalents less than everybody else. So out of the gate, that doesn't make sense to me.
no, it doesn't.
That's a little bizarre. What is the risk between 2 more, hydrocodone 10 tablets versus not? There's no literature to support that difference. You can make the argument that the patient is a candidate or is not a candidate, but 20 oral morphine equivalents.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. I'm not saying she didn't go through that, but that's bizarre. Yeah.
But that's because they're trying. Again, I want to make sure that everybody understands. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about every doctor or every clinic out there.
Talk about me. That's fine.
But some clinics, they want to protect themselves, and studies show that ladies who hit a certain score on this ACE score sheet have a better chance of becoming addicted.
Sure.
So they're trying to prevent that.
Oh, absolutely.
Without understanding what's going on in real life.
Yeah.
She has a true chronic pain condition, but we need to make sure that they're not going to get addicted. So let's not give them X amount. Let's not give them 10s. Let's give them 7.5s or even 5s.
Sure.
Because that'll provide a little relief.
So some background on that. If it doesn't seem reasonable to the patient, it probably isn't reasonable, but sometimes it looks good in the chart when you're audited and you go through the state and they're reading every line of that patient's chart with you on the phone, been there, done that, then it looks good to say, I've recognized this patient's higher risk. And because of that, I'm reducing her dose from A to B. Now, that is a truth that looks good on paper. And truthfully, I have practiced that way from time to time because you have to play the game. But also, it's important to recognize that this patient might be at increased risk. I guess the question I have here is reducing that patient by 20 oral morphine equivalents actually reducing her risk? That's the question.
That's the question.
Let's finish the video, Kevin.
But until later, and then until it was too late. And that, forgive me, but it screwed me in the end. The second thing that I will briefly mention is I hate being spoken to like I'm ignorant. It bothers me so much because the likelihood is that I brought so many studies and research and summaries and information I typed up and stuff like that. So adverse childhood events and talking to me like I haven't thought this through yet. So see if you can do something about the adverse childhood events. The other is just really dependent on who the physician is. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Karen.
I love Advo. She's an incredible person.
And she brings up a great point. And I don't think, based on what I'm hearing her say too, her big issue is not the reduction of opioid. It's how she was talked to.
Well, how she was talked to, as well as how they blanket took that score that a lot of doctors will find these ACE forms online and print them off and then just take that as the gospel.
Oh, yeah.
And that brings up getting not your pain is not being treated adequately.
Right.
That puts you in a different category. And then in her case, when she would bring in documentation saying, look, yeah, this happened to me, but this is what I'm able to do. I'm not showing you any signs of being addicted. I'm not showing you any signs of selling my stuff on the street. I'm passing my pill counts, my UAs, and all the stuff like this, but you still are hitting me with this reduction. So that's part of it as well. And Advo is a very intelligent person, and she will do the research and she'll read the NIH studies and everything.
And they should. Patients should. And I'm not expecting patients to fully even understand all of the studies that they're reading because it is complicated. We have to go through years of even knowing how to read a study because they can be manipulated just like anything else.
Oh, yeah.
But if your doctor is punishing you for doing your own research, then you need a new doctor. Like I don't care, how great your doctor is, but
that's in itself.
Yeah.
If I had brought in research on ketamine to previous doctors, I would have been laughed at. I'd have been, well, we don't do that here. That doesn't work. And why are you even, one of the best quotes that a certain doctor told me, I'm treating your pain. If you're still hurting, that's your fault.
That's what the doctor actually said. Oh.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
Come on, Keith, get it together.
I'm like, yeah. And how do you respond from that?
See that zero, circle it. Thank you.
Yeah. And so I had taken him documentation, just like what Karen had done. And there's a battle we can get into another time that if people take documentation or studies into a doctor, some doctors, not all, some get offended because unlike you who want people to research what's wrong with them, like I've been reading up on neuropathy and how ketamine can help me. And I've been reading that. I get updates on ketamine studies every week, right? But some doctors will take that as I'm the expert. Trust what I say, not what you.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. I've found that the patients that do their own research actually make my life easier because then I'm put into a position of guiding them rather than a position of selling them on something, right? Or explaining it from A to Z. I'll do that too. I don't mind. But it's the patients that do their own research that tend to get better because they're engaged in their recovery.
And that's the key, right?
That's the key right there.
You have to be willing to be helping your doctor.
A participant in your plan of care.
Develop the plan.
Right.
And I want to go back to ACE real quick.
Yes.
Excuse me. It's real. I'll never forget when I brought this up to you months ago. You were on one side. I was on the exam table, chair, whatever, lounger, whatever you want to call it. You were here and your PA, Diane, she was on the other side. And I brought it up. And I'm kind of giving like a quick study on it. And Diane's face, her jaw was like on the floor. She's like, doctors actually do this? I'm like, how many people do you want to talk to?
Mm-hmm.
I hear this every single day. And how, like, a lot of times if a husband and wife both are looking for a new pain patient and they go into a new doctor's office, 95% of the time, the wife will get the ACE paperwork and the guy won't, right? Because studies show that dealing with adverse child events, males handle it one way and ladies handle it a different way. Out of all my people I talked to, there's only been one male that has said that his doctor blamed it on ACE events. And it really is something that doctors need to be trained better on, I feel, instead of, I read a paper when I was in college. And so I was taught in college that this is what it is. And so if I can't figure things out, this is the, because it unfortunately, I hate to say the word abuse, but it feels like abuse. Patients are abused. They're not getting an opportunity to be treated.
So treated, in this case, you're referring to opioid prescriptions?
Anything.
Or across the board?
Across the board.
Okay.
Because I think you and I agree it's not just my spine that's causing it's not just the spine issue or the nerve issues. It's the whole body experience, right? So I think you and I agree, my mental aspect is important of it. My physical activity is part of it. Can I do things with my wife? Can I have a quality of life? So when I say they're not being treated, none of that's being addressed. It's all going back to something that happened to them then. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunately, it's gaining in popularity when doctors can't figure out anything else. I don't want to be adversarial, but instead of saying you don't know, don't blame it on that. Maybe make it.
Yeah, there's definitely a communication problem, and there's lots of reasons for that. I don't think doctors have always been known to have great bedside manner. Some are better than others, of course. And then, of course, the time that we have with patients is always getting shorter and shorter. So to give you a more in-depth explanation that kind of holds your hand in a way that makes you feel comfortable the whole time is not always possible. Sometimes it has to be done in environments like this, but that's giving them the benefit of the doubt. I do think, generally speaking, us doctors need to get better at kind of putting ourselves in our patients' shoes and giving them a little bit of benefit of the doubt where they're coming from. I think a lot of times patients know what's going on. Not a lot of times, every time patients know what's going on with their body more than the physician does, right? So, you don't have to sit there and do this all the time. Your patient will tell you what's wrong with them. Now, going back to ACE scores, so it's basically, let's put it this way. Pain management, the whole theme of pain management is how can you treat the pain and prevent the use of opioids? Simple as that. We're not trained to, now's a great time to introduce opioids. Now's a great time to increase opioids. It's always like, oh, well, you failed at A, B, and C. Now we have to do this. And you hope that you just don't do that to some level that's going to get everybody in trouble, right? So, and whether you like it or not, I'm sure there's some truth that's based on. I mean, not everybody should be on an opioid. Opioids have significant, detriments, and I don't think anybody's going to argue with. Well, there are some people that's going to argue.
There are some, yeah.
But no, you can't deny it as far as the real risk opioids, introduce. But you can't necessarily, in my opinion, dictate necessarily across the board without individualizing your plan of care for patients, whether someone should get them or not. To go back to ACE scores, they are, there is a dose response, right? So let's say you have, the scale goes from 0 to 10. So if you have more than 4 adverse childhood events, then the chances of you developing hypertension, diabetes, obesity, all these things go way high, right? So it's not just chronic pain. Chronic pain is a part of that. You have a 2 to 4 times greater chance of developing chronic pain. That same population, you have a 4 to 6 times greater chance to develop an opioid use disorder. And so those statistics have been well studied. This is the real game and the real numbers that we're playing with. So, okay, so you've established this patient has an increased risk of opioids. Great. what are you going to do about it? Right now, if the patient's already been maintained on opioids and they're passing all their checkpoints and you have a good relationship and they've been transparent and the patient's doing very well on it and you've already maximized everything else, in my opinion, that's a great patient. You got to treat their pain, and that seems to be the best option in that moment. If that new piece of information came to light and then you go back and say, oh, actually, we're going to reduce you 20 morphine equivalents because of what happened to you when you were 5. And also you need to go see a psych. Well, I've already seen a psych. Well, we can't help you. Then it gets like, suddenly you're on the defense. It's like, what did I do?
Yeah. Well, the problem I run into is I talk to a lot of patients when they're going to go see a new doctor because there's a lot of anxiety there. And I help them figure out a 3-minute story about what they're on and what they tried and all the stuff like this. And when it comes down, they'll ask me, what do I do with these ACE scores, with these ACE questionnaires? And I firmly believe you cannot have a good relationship with your doctor if you're not open and honest. Mm-hmm. And it hurts because in some cases, I'll tell them, do what you want to do. I may not be completely honest when I fill those forms out on the very first day that I'm meeting that doctor. Mm-hmm. A doctor that I've met through online, Dr. Mike, he put it bluntly, that new doctor doesn't need to know on the first day what happened to you when you were 5 years old. Mm-hmm. And I don't go that far, but yeah, I think maybe that can come out once you have a relationship.
You need to have a relationship, yeah.
And but it hurts me to even offer that advice because that's your very first day with that doctor, and you need to be open and honest. And a lot of people aren't going to be open and honest because they want to protect that side until they know, is this doctor somebody I can trust?
Right.
Does that make sense? So it hurts to tell people. I mean, I leave it. It's your decision, your call. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but to discuss it with them, the pros and cons. I hate even doing that because I want an open relationship. I've been honest with you. I've been honest with every pain doctor I've ever had because I want to get better. Mm-hmm. Like, how can I be honest with you or get better if I'm starting off on a shaky foundation?
Exactly.
Right. So it's a tough call. It's a very tough call.
And I think patients need to understand too, as if they didn't already know it, but doctors are looking for every reason to not write that opioid prescription. Yeah. Every single reason. Yeah. And I kind of liken it to an airplane full of people, and it's going to fly from San Francisco to Japan, right over the ocean. And the risk of opioid addiction is about 10% of all people that end up on opioids. True opioid addiction is about 10%. Opioid use disorder, where you're not really taking it as prescribed, maybe you're calling for early refills or, letting your family member try one, right? And you're coloring outside the lines. That is about 30%. Yeah. And so, that also carries with it risk for all parties involved. So imagine if you had a plane with 100 seats and 10 seats you knew were going to fall out of the plane halfway over the ocean, because that's what opioid addiction is. It's bad.
Yeah, you lose everything.
Right. And if you're the captain of that airplane and you want to make sure that all the seats are safe and you want to make sure, so we don't really have the best way to know who's going to develop an opioid addiction and who's not. Unfortunately, it's pretty random. We have screening tools. We have, tons of paperwork you fill out and you circle this and you circle that and it gives you a risk profile. But we have patients that have high risk that are very compliant. They're doing very well. There's no issues. In the same category, we have patients that scored zeros.
And then they have issues.
Right. And their first prescription, they're like off the wagon, yeah. So you can't always predict. And I think that's the real challenge. And the consequences of being responsible for that person is so high that a lot of physicians, to their credit, are risk adverse. And unfortunately, that's to the majority of patients' detriment. Yeah. Because now it's like the plane doesn't even want to leave San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I think everybody would understand that if you were the captain of that plane.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm really not trying to be adversarial in talking about this topic.
Right.
I am passionate.
No. I mean, I'm just giving the other side of it.
Yeah, because I hear so many stories.
Right.
And then these are random people will message me hey, can I talk to you? And I'll send them my cell phone number, and they'll call and they're like, this is what my doctor said. What do I do? And it's so what I'm excited about is we're even discussing it, right? Because that gives a lot of validation to patients that have experienced it and have been, am I the only one? What have I done that my doctor thinks this? Because they don't know that it's happened to other people.
Right.
And I think I want to say thank you for even being willing to mention the words, because many won't.
Yeah. Well, again, I think a lot of the miscommunication comes into play with really what the understanding of pain is and the understanding of how it should be properly treated. I don't think the healthcare system at large is really equipped, certainly within the pain management world, to really help a chronic pain patient long term. That's one of the reasons I started my own clinic, so that I could have the freedom to bring in as many modalities as I possibly could, because I think patients and physicians in general, and I think the national discussion tends to fall into this rut where it's like opioids or no opioids, but pain is so complex. I mean, it's a physical and emotional experience, right? And it is greatly dictated from childhood events. And it's greatly dictated from genetics, your family environment, your own physical body, your physiology, how your brain works.
Right.
To boil all that down to like one pill being the solution or not the solution, I think we're missing the target. And I think that may be the greater lesson here. Definitely physicians should be communicating more empathetically with their patients. Definitely we shouldn't bring up old monsters to change a plan of care that's already been working, right? Could that play into the greater picture of care? Absolutely, and I think it should, because you can have an MRI of somebody that and their MRI looks horrible, but they have no pain. Conversely, an MRI may look perfect and they're in a lot of pain. We know the expectation of your plan of care, whether you're generally an optimistic person or a pessimistic person, is going to play into your personal outcome, all other things being the same. So that's why, the challenge and the mystery of pain and the beauty and the art of pain management is it's very nuanced, and it should be nuanced. And I think that's where the conversation needs to be individualized per patient. And I definitely disagree when you have blanket screening questionnaires that are used to punish the whole clinic or the whole state or the whole nation when it comes to, pain management. That's the one thing that should be very individualized. You're not going to give every diabetic the same insulin.
No, you're not.
You're going to kill them.
Yeah. But it goes back to individualizing that plan for that person.
Right.
Can we do that? And with the constraints that you're up against with feds, DEA, insurance companies, the state, and your time, right? I understand it's difficult to get that individualized, but that's really, I think, what it needs to be focused on. I think you do a great job with it. You spent 30 minutes with me before, and I felt terrible because people were waiting, but then I've waited 45 minutes before, right? And I first thought as I'm furious, but I'm like, wait a minute. 2 months ago, he spent 30 minutes with me in that room. It's all good.
Right.
Yeah. But I think that goes down to that individualized care is really what it is, regardless of ACE scores or anything else. So
that's it. Well, please let us know if we answered your questions. If you have any additional questions, comments, concerns, please leave a comment down below. I will respond to them, and maybe it's something we could even talk about again in the future. If you have another idea, something you want us to talk about, or hear, what's going on behind the scenes. Why is your doctor doing this? Doesn't make sense. I'm being treated unfairly. Let us know. You may be being treated unfairly, but there may be some more to the story. So let's keep the conversation going. We'll see you next time.